Hi, this is Graphically Alex coming at you with all things fat related. If that's something that interests you, please subscribe. I'd love to have you. Oh my goodness, what a week it has been for me. But I look forward to Thursdays, especially when I have like a longer or long form content to react to. Woo! It was chaotic. But I made it and I'm thriving and I love that. Reverse diet is going very well. Yeah, it feels weird. Feels weird. Feels weird to be having more. It feels a little weird, but I'm okay. I'm just surprised. Well, I can't even talk about it because YouTube is so ugh. So I'll have to maybe talk about it on a health update. Anyways, let's continue. I don't even know. I've forgotten everything.
Given storylines outside of their fatness, their bodies and their supposed failures being their primary arcs, if they're even lucky to get that. Such storylines tend to be focused on the gaining or losing of weight, their size a theme to explore shame or disgust.
One of the more recent...
Okay, so the issue I have with that line of thought is that whenever you're writing fiction, there has to be a reason why a character is a certain way. So there's always a reason. So if you do differentiate that a character is fat, there is a purpose for them being fat because it is fictional. So the way that she frames that, it's just odd. It would be weird to like just describe somebody as very fat for no reason in a narrative. If there was no reason for that, then you just wouldn't describe the person, at least not in that much detail. And the reader can think of them in whatever way. That's typically how I would view it anyways. If you are specifically describing something, that's for a reason. Again, I don't think that they understand fiction.
Ones, and this may have or may not have come up in your discussions already, was the movie The Whale. That one is very interesting to me because, especially looking to the background, it's more about this guy reflecting his religious trauma. And I don't know this author. I don't want to psychoanalyze him, but it felt like being overweight was more of a he saw it as a curse because I don't think he's ever been fat as far as I can tell. And
That's wrong. I believe he was overweight. He might have even been in the toxic ritualistic, but maybe more mildly so. But it was kind of based on like a worse fear of him upsizing drastically, which the toxic ritualistic TR, it's a coded term for E followed by letter D for the sake of YouTube. But he was like on the bigger end of things. And I think he was just kind of like, fat, not like hugely fat, but he was scared of becoming hugely fat. And that was kind of like that whole play was like his worst case scenario of like the worst case of his life, like if he didn't deal with his sexuality or whatever. I had my issues with the movie. I think that it was kind of just like a little bit aimless. I didn't know it was about a play, or I didn't know that it was adapted from a play when I watched it. If I would have known that, I might have understood it better. I think it works better as a play because a play doesn't have to like have the same rules or structure as a movie to work. So I had issues with the plot itself, like just with the way it was structured. It doesn't make for as interesting as a movie because, for example, it's like super limited just to the set of the apartment that he was in. That's, there were certain moments where it would show other scenes and stuff, but that just works better as a play, in my opinion. I almost wish I could have seen the play and seen it done that way because it probably was more interesting. And it's just a different medium. So I just wasn't really that big of a fan of how it was transferred to the film because it felt pointless. It felt like you're just watching somebody spiral, and you're watching somebody go through hell for nothing, for no real sense of catharsis. There's no point. It felt pointless. So that's the issue that I had with it. But it wasn't really an issue of him being huge or him dealing with certain toxic ritualistic behaviors. It was a little hard to watch at times when I was there. I can't remember when I watched it. I probably watched it like, I don't know. I can't remember. I'm thinking it was like 2024, maybe a little earlier than that. But it was a little bit triggering in a sense. At the time, like, it gave me anxiety to watch, but I could deal with it. I could handle it. But yeah, I could see why, like, fat people or, fat acceptance or people that struggle with the toxic ritualistic, why they didn't like it. I can understand that. It was very, like, it could increase anxiety, but it was, like I said, by somebody that has been in the issue and feared it getting worse. And so that's kind of how he dealt with it. Again, from a writing perspective, I think it worked better as a play. I think it was probably better as a play. But that's just a different discussion entirely. I can see why they hate it, is what I'm trying to say. That one I can understand a bit more than the Shallow Hal one. Because it was kind of just, it seemed like he just went through all that just for nothing, basically.
Not that I'm aware of, but I also don't know that much about him, the
Yeah,
playwright.
no, I think the
Yeah.
religious trauma and
See, told you.
him being gay was something that was way more of a focal point for him, and the
Hmm.
fatness was more of a punishment.
It was more, the way that I saw it was like, why or what would happen if he didn't deal with it, if he didn't deal with his sexuality. It's kind of like, I need to deal with this or I'm going to end up in this position. That was kind of like, I believe, what the thought exercise was, which I can understand that thought process, absolutely. And I can definitely understand the catharsis of it and all that stuff. So I wasn't really mad about it, but it was about, to me, it was very centered on sexuality. That was mostly what it was about, if I remember correctly.
And his self-hatred, and it really comes across in the text.
And if you think about it, that's kind of weird, right? Like, obviously, being fat affects one's day to day, but the idea that any and all attributes must be a straight through line from fatness to that is a bit odd. It would be just as odd to attribute every characteristic of a tall person to their height. Fat people are fat, yes, but they're also brave, scared, and joyful. They are allergic to flowers and dance every time a Chapel Rowan song comes on. They have friends. They fall in love. They pursue their dreams, travel to places on their bucket.
Yeah, I think that all those things are definitely true. But again, when we look at somebody who's being super morbidly obese, it's going to take up a lot of your life. You got to be realistic. It's different if you're just obese. It is totally different. So I do think it is size dependent. Absolutely. Because you can have a more full life being just class 1. Absolutely. But when we're talking about like super morbidly obese, even morbid, it starts to take over. So I don't necessarily agree with all of that. Like, you can write about a fat person going through all that stuff, but if you're writing somebody super morbidly obese, you have to write about the struggles of that too, and the physical struggles of it, because otherwise it's kind of like you obviously don't know what you're writing about. It's like it's not a well fleshed out thing. Also, people don't just become super morbidly obese randomly because they lost the lottery or they won the lottery or whatever. It's something that happens due to dedicated action that's repeated multiple times a day. So it is something that, if you're going to talk about it, that character is going to have a lot of complex issues, whether they're physical issues, mental issues, or the combination of the two, which is even more common to have both.
Bucket list.
And you will have to write about them if you're going to write an honest character. Class 1 obese, it's a little bit different. That's where you have there's more of a gray area. It's at that phase, there are physical health issues, but they're more subtle. And you tend to have more social costs or more social issues with weight in class 1 obesity.
And have hobbies. Now, I do see one or two of you in the back of the classroom scoffing at this a bit, and I understand. I mean, after all, these aren't real people we're talking about. They're made up. So what possible harm could be done? Well, attitudes that we see in the media often reinforce dangerous and harmful ideas around fat bodies, furthering misunderstanding of our humanity, as well as why we're even fat in the first place.
A survey involving a nationally representative sample of primary care physicians revealed that not only did more than half of respondents think that patients who were obese were awkward and unattractive, but more than 50% believed that they would be non-compliant with treatment. 1/3 thought of them as weak-willed and lazy.
That's pretty disheartening.
So I would say that it can depend. Obviously, sometimes doctors can get very cold, but also if it's something that you've experienced often, then it can be difficult. Like, I do think that a doctor needs to mitigate their bias as much as they can. Try to look at every face like a fresh face, basically. But it gets tough. It's tough. Any job where there's like repetitive, it's even like any kind of customer service. If there's repetitive issues, you can start to view everything that way. It can happen in activism. I mean, there's a lot of careers that it can happen in. So there's a lot of jobs where it can happen, and you have to kind of like keep your brain turned on. But I'm not going to like lecture every doctor ever. I know it's a hard job and mistakes can be made at times, but I would say that they probably experience that enough or to a certain extent. Again, I don't think that you should put that on every single fat person, but yeah, I can see why they would think that, because they've likely given intervention to a lot of people and they don't listen and blah, blah, blah. In some cases, fat people are lazy as well, so that does happen too. Not all cases though, but quite a few.
Here that the supposed reason for why people feel justified in their harassment and bullying of fat people is due supposedly for the good of their health. Meanwhile, it's not actually being fat that's actually causing us harm. It's people in the medical industry having assumptions about us and then not treating us as well because of it.
But they think that, that you must hate yourself in order to be this lackadaisical about keeping yourself healthy, and that fat is related to health, and so, like, the depressed whale who can't see enough good in himself to do anything about it.
Right, but it's written about somebody. It's written by somebody within the issue. That was his experience. There's something there. They're writing about this like as if that's somebody who just randomly decided to write about a fat person one day. No. So he was dealing with the self-loathing for a lot of different reasons, including his sexuality and all this stuff. And, the character in the movie was really upset about his relationship with his daughter. I believe it was his daughter, if I remember correctly. So again, that's complicated too. And there's just a lot there. So I'm like, I don't think that it's... like, it's somebody who experienced it. Like, they love to just discount people's experiences, even though they act like it's so, it's everybody's lived experience, unless if I don't like it. That's kind of how they act. It's very hypocritical, which to me, like, if it's fiction, it's fiction, It's exaggerated. But again, it was a catharsis for him personally. So it's like, okay, maybe it's exaggerated here or there. Maybe he was a hot mess and how he wrote about it to a certain extent. But it's like I have enough of an ability to just let somebody be creative, you know? And again, even though I do think the film adaptation had issues, which, like I said, I already brought up, but as far as being a writer, it's like just let a person write about their own experiences in a fictionalized way. Like, it's okay. You're going to be fine, you know?
The mean and nasty Dursley who can't be arsed to care about anything outside of himself and his immediate pleasure. The impulsive, repulsive, selfish Harridan of that Rebel Wilson character who scams people and is like garbage bag dress, like I am a literal sack of garbage was a selling point for this freaking movie. And like that to me is the essence of how we culturally view
I
fat.
think that the issue too is like they can't separate themselves from a fat person in media either. So it's like they can't look at a character like, for example, that character in The Whale, he is gay, he struggled with the TR, and he was portraying like fatness and whatever. That's something that on paper should be able to massively relate to, but I didn't really like the way he wrote about homosexuality. I didn't love it. I really didn't. I just didn't. Or it didn't quite resonate, you know? And I think I don't expect it to, because I understand that gay people are not a monolith and people have different feelings and different experiences. And so I don't tend to relate to gay media in that way. But because I feel like my experience is kind of different, you know? I don't know. It's not like different in a I'm not like the other gays way. It's different in like it's heavily clouded by a toxic ritualistic brainwave. Like, I don't know how to describe it, where it's like I was extremely horrified by being gay, and then I just completely accepted it in like a second. So I just went very whiplashy. And I feel like a lot of gay media is about the in between, and I didn't really have an in between experience. So I just don't relate, but that's okay. You know, that's fine. um, I haven't watched Heated Rivalry, but I've had some heated rivalry moments in my life, where you're competitive with the guy that you like and stuff like that. That's happened. I'm sure you're shocked, but it's happened. It's typical. It's cringy to me sometimes when I'm like such a typical gay. But again, there are other situations where I don't relate. So like the way he wrote about it in The Whale, I just don't relate to it. I don't. Again, I haven't actually watched Heated Rivalry. I am interested in it, but I feel like it's like, oh my gosh, I don't know. It's just different when you've like been in those kind of when you've been in that dynamic where it's like I like this guy but I'm competing with him at the same time. It's like I don't know if I want to watch something about it because it's like a little too close to home, and I'm trying to chill out now. I'm trying not to be like that way or at least like not in like a super vicious way, I guess you could say. But the point is, like, there are certain gay things I can absolutely relate to and certain things I can't. And that's okay. It should be the same thing with seeing a fat character. There's certain things that you can relate to when you're watching a fat character, and there's certain things that you can't. Like Rebel Wilson, she often plays a super extroverted character. I'm not extroverted. So I could never like super relate to her. I just couldn't. Like, and I couldn't. I don't know. I don't know. It's just, but they can't like separate themselves. You have to be able to like it's so important to be able to see people as different from you, even if they're a similar size. It's so hard for people in the TR. It's very hard, especially at severe levels. It's very hard to separate it because you so heavily identify, and you shouldn't, you know?
At people, especially in media, is like
Mm-hmm.
selfish, lazy, impulsive, depressed, self-hating, and fundamentally lacking of willpower.
This points to why it is so
I think
important.
you can write characters like that are fat, and you can also write the funny fat friend type. You can write, like, honestly, every fat person has a different personality. So I would definitely encourage somebody to have versatility in how they write about it. But just remember, if they're super morbidly obese, they're going to have an issue fitting on the plane or something. You know, there's going to be something where it comes up. There's going to be some kind of internal monologue about their size. They're going to have to consider it at least somewhat, because if you're that big, it's like, unless if you're on the Wally, you know, on the Wally chair, you're going to have a problem. So it's like you have to write about that realistically enough. And then same thing with social issues. So like if I was writing a character that was class 1 obese, and they were especially like in high school or college or something, or maybe even just 20s, I would write about social impacts of being an American midsize, because it would come up, you know, having that whiplash of some people thinking you look amazing, some people thinking you look horrible. And it's like weird. It's hard to date. You know, it's like kind of writing about those challenges because that's what it's like. So again, it's not going to be as physical, but there will be some social issues that come up. And you have to write about that too, you know? And there can also be insecurity in a person that's class 1 obese, especially if they're younger. If they're older, maybe not, you know, but you have to like frame the whole character. You get me?
To be mindful of how you write a fat character, because not only does it increase your believability if your character is well written, but also you might literally be able to save lives by forcing people to confront their biases. Along those same lines,
No, I don't know about that, because media saving lives it's a little bit much. That's all I'm going to say. Like, I get that people say that, like, about music. They're like, this song saved my life. Like, I think Simple Plan has a song called This Song Saved My Life, which is something that people say, but I think it's just, like, it's about catharsis. It's about, like, emotional release. Like, I don't think it's life-saving. That's a little bit too much. I think it can make somebody think, so it can challenge a bias, for sure, or it can open a person's mind or something. Like, you can convey an argument through art, for sure. It's typically an emotional argument, unless if you're talking about like nonfiction, then it's like a logical argument, which it's fine either way. But I do like art in that sense, or like that creative writing aspect where it's like an emotional essay in a sense. It's like, or a dream that you're writing, and you can convey a message through that. And that's powerful, but I think we need to chill out a bit, you know? Just like I would never blame media for somebody developing a TR issue, I could never say that media could save somebody from that either, you know? I do think that arguments can. I do think that breaking delusions can. I do think, in the case of BINGE, downsizing visibility, WL visibility, can help, you know. Caloric realism, right? That's life-saving. Gray area thinking is life-saving within the TR. There's a lot of things that are life-saving, but they have more to do with like cognitive skills, cognitive mindsets, perspective shifts that require like real life tangible experiences to fully integrate. And also like challenging certain beliefs that we have, like if you're in your tortured, morbidly obese era, and you're like, can I actually do this? Will my body actually downsize if I do the work? I don't know. I'm tortured about that, right? I'm going through a plateau. I don't know if I can continue. Well, you challenge that belief. That's life-saving. So you continue the work and then it comes off later. That's life-saving, right? It's not like you saw something on TV and that's what happened. You get me? It just doesn't work. I think it can be a catharsis, though. I talked about my Mad Fat Diary. When I watched that, being auntie in my 30s, it helped me to kind of process and reflect on some of my feelings about my high school journey and some of my feelings about like how my weight has interacted with my dating life and all that crap. So it was a catharsis. Did it save my life? No. Was it entertaining? Yes. Did it cover the issue well? The first 2 seasons, yes. But again, I can criticize it too, right? The 3rd season, meh. I don't think it was a bad message at the end. I just feel like it wasn't fleshed out enough. But it's like, that's where, you know, it's, I think art is powerful, but it's not, like, we need to chill out a bit with that. That's all I'm trying to say. It's a bit much. It's a catharsis.
I would ask writers be mindful and careful how they proceed when writing relationships between fat people and smaller characters. Those who date fat people are sometimes depicted as though they have a fetish, as if that's the only reason they could possibly be interested in them. We see this more often with fat women than fat men, as of course the stereotypical sitcom husband is typically larger than his long-suffering and far more conventionally attractive wife. This kind of attitude can leave some people who are dating those with larger bodies to feel a deep shame, sometimes even going to the point of wanting to keep those relationships secret. To be clear, it is okay to call a character fat.
So I want to say this too. There's a lot of reasons why people keep relationships secret. There's so many reasons. I feel like a lot of times the weight thing, it can be like an easy, like, I'm just going to say that. But there's probably like more to it. It's usually more complicated, which I think that would be an interesting thing to write about, you know, writing about a story where there's a couple where it's like, the guy's like, I can't talk about this because you're big or whatever, or like something to that effect. And it's like, but it's like, there's all these other reasons why, because I feel like that's what it is most of the time. It's usually, there's a lot of reasons. Sometimes it can be like that a person is just, I don't know, like it could be because of how the person is, or it could be like they're hiding something else, like maybe they have a whole other partner. You know what I mean? There's just so many reasons why people do that. It's, you know, tread lightly. That's all I can say. It's a little risky, put it to you that way.
Not a bad word. You can have a fat character and call them as such.
But again, that risk factor, it's interesting to write about. It's emotionally risky. And that can also create like more tension, and that can transfer into like romantic tension within the context of the story. Like it's an interesting place to start, especially when you're writing, you know, because nobody's actually getting hurt. So again, it's a catharsis, right? This is low-key. I know I'm not going to write, but this is low-key making me feel like I want to write again. I'm not going to, but.
The issue that I and other fat activists have is in someone's solely defining characteristic being their fatness. There are ways to talk about one's fatness and how that affects the way they move throughout the world. We'll be discussing that at a later portion of this lecture. But before we do, let's go ahead and discuss perhaps my favorite and most important rule when writing fat characters.
Fat bastard is not really a character. He's just a walking.
So the fat suit thing, sometimes you have to use it because if somebody's super, super big, IRL, they're not going to be able to sustain a filming schedule.
Pile of stigmatizing stereotypes. You know what I mean? This character is like constantly screaming. When he walks around, it makes boom, boom, boom noises. He's constantly covered in like gross liquids and pieces of food and things where it's like, this is a character
It's comedic.
that really isn't a character.
Yeah, it's exaggerated. It's an exaggerated character because it's comedy. So it happens in comedy. People will be like massively stereotypical. For example, like in the Scary Movie franchise, all those characters are super stereotypical and meant to be comedic, even if it's at times like offensive humor. But for people that like those movies, I do love those movies so much. That's what they're supposed to be, you know? So it's like, it's not supposed to be taken super seriously. It's just supposed to be like a hot mess of a situation, basically. Which that's more so what that is in Austin Powers. I don't remember those movies that much, but I don't know. They keep making me want to watch all these things again. I am going to see the new Scary Movie when it comes out. I'm like so excited to see it. But I'm just saying, like, they're making me want to rewatch this stuff.
It's just a statement of, this is disgusting. Look at this disgust. And it's meant to trigger a disgust reflex and kind of shock a laugh out of an audience.
Yeah, because a lot of humor is taboo, or a lot of humor is shocking, or it's like not what you expect. That's where a lot of humor comes from.
It's a fat suit example. I think it's kind of one of our worst fat suit examples. It's just like, there's nothing redeeming about that character.
It's pretty baffling, I have to even say this. If you're going to have a story with fat people, you have to actually have fat people. Should be pretty straightforward, folks. The history of fat suits goes back quite a ways, back to the earliest records of theater that we have. There were Shakespearean characters that were fat, played by skinny, more conventionally sized people in fat suits, usually comedic in nature. In her video about fat suits, Sarah notes that the history of this padding is linked very much to the portrayal of the mammy character. Because, as has been discussed in this class before, fat phobia and racism are deeply intertwined. Isn't learning fun? Speaking of...
No. You just talked about Shakespeare? Wasn't that way before that?
Of comedy, that is most likely the genre where you have encountered fat suits before. Movies like Shallow.
Now I'm confused. I'm getting my timelines mixed up. I'm getting confused. Hold on, I want to look up when Shakespeare was around. Yeah, 1564 is when he was born. That's a long time ago. Isn't that like longer than they say Fearing the Black Body? I feel like that's prior to that. So I don't know. Sorry, I'm not a historian, so I'm like kind of rusty on certain things if I'm wrong about that.
Oh How, The Nutty Professor, as well as Austin Powers, all feature fat characters played by straight-sized actors with the help of prosthetics and strategically placed stuffing, continually perpetuating the idea that these fat people are funny specifically for being fat. It's also very common in sitcoms, such as How I Met Your Mother, New Girl, and...
But typically it has to do with characters where they have to shift size too. Not all the time, but certainly in Shallow Hal, that's an example of that. And I believe The Nutty Professor as well, if I remember correctly, which, yes. Duh. So, again, they are really digging deep here. And I haven't watched The Nutty Professor in, like, forever. I used to love it, though. I used to love that movie. But I do not remember it. Like, that just, like, opened up a part of my brain I haven't thought about in a long time. I'm like, that we're getting real deep in the 2000s.
course, Friends.
Or like, at least when I watched it, it was probably like, it was forever ago. I never watched Friends, so.
One, the fat suit looked terrible because they always look terrible. Like they don't ever look like a real person. And like, especially when you have a character who is shown as being fat in their backstory because they're wearing a fat suit, and then you show now it's like very Hollywood small Courtney Cox, and then there's like, you know, in the past, like the fat Monica past for Monica, like she's always eating. She gets mayonnaise on Rachel because, like, why would she stop eating a sandwich to get ready for prom? Like, you know, it's just this, like, you know, fat people, they're just putting mayonnaise on everything all the time, you know, and they never stop eating. They eat 3 whole pies.
But fat suits aren't just for the media that makes you laugh. It's
Again, I can't speak on that as much because I didn't watch Friends, so.
also for the media that makes you think. Christian Bale in Vice or Brendan Fraser in The Whale are prime examples of more recent fat suit usage.
I was kind of impressed by The Whale. I was impressed. Oops.
In dramas. These films, arguably Oscar bait, depict the lives of fat people, one of whom was an actual person who existed in real life. But instead of casting fat people with those actual body types, we cast these guys? Also, actors gaining or losing weight for roles that are outside.
So, if I remember correctly, Brendan Fraser has struggled with weight a bit. So, but I mean, you're not going to get somebody who actually weighs 600 pounds to do a movie. Like, that's not going to happen. But you guys don't want to acknowledge why that won't.
Of their typical size really uphold some
No, it's not a good example. I think that's stupid.
Uncomfortable anti-fat undertones. Well, this rich famous actor who can spend hours every day to working out and has a dedicated person who he pays to feed him can do it. Why can't you?
Visuals are so powerful, you know what I mean? And it gives you this visual impression that a fat person's body is a suit they could take off. And so why don't they? They must be
Oh my
stupid.
gosh, that is so DIS ordered. Oh my God. I mean, I guess I can understand the perspective. I think even when I was very deep in the TR, or pretty early on, I didn't view it that way. I viewed it more so like they just want this famous person and they need a fat character in the movie and they want it to be this famous person so that they can have like the clout of that person in the movie. That's how I saw it, which is, you know, whatever. And then I don't know. I don't know if I thought about it that much deeper than that. I can see that in a TR brain. I can see a TR person going there. Like, I think maybe somewhere down the line, it's like you can like fantasize about that or something. Like, I wish I could just, you know, take it off or something like that. So I can understand that, but it's very like TR.
There must be something wrong with them. Like, why wouldn't they just do what?
I have to say, I'm uncomfortable on the seat because my butt is hitting the bottom of the chair. So if you see me moving like this, I'm uncomfortable. I'm going to get a pillow. I'm having a moment right now. I'm having a moment. The other thing I have to say is I went to the movies yesterday. I went with my grandma and we watched Hail Mary or Project Hail Mary. I was freezing. Absolutely freezing. You see me, I'm wearing a sweater. I'm wearing a sweater for all my Britishy types. I'm wearing a sweater and it's almost May and I'm like, oh my gosh, in the South. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm a lizard. We'll see what happens. But I'm like, I was cold in that theater. Cold. Like, holy crap. So I'm going to have to probably make sure I wear pants and long sleeves when I go to the movies because they do blast the AC anyways. But I was like, I had my Georgie jacket on and it wasn't enough. I was wearing shorts. I was too cold. So I don't know, y'all. I don't know. I'm starting to sound like everyone else, but here I am.
Fat Monica did, and it's like she wasn't fat though. Like, she's wearing a thingy that makes her look like she's fat, but she's not. You know, and then so I think it gives this like impression to people that like fat people are fat because they enjoy being tormented or something inexplicable like that. And it's
I feel like that's the DIS. Oh my gosh, this pillow. I almost like flew off the seat. I think that's the TR aspect. Like you're kind of telling on yourself a little bit because I don't think people view it that way. People typically, like if you ask a general population person, they would view it as either A, the person's lazy, the person lacks self-control, so there'd be that, or they would say B, it's just so hard and they're just so busy and they can't do it, or they don't have enough money, which that one is a TR lie that they're repeating, but regardless, that's what a general person would say. So they wouldn't think like you want to be tormented. That's not like, to me, it's like you're kind of telling on yourself. Because I do think, again, there is an aspect of the TR that has to do with self-hatred and self-H, you know? So there is an element of that where you want to sabotage yourself and that kind of thing. So it's kind of sad though.
like they could
It's sad because I don't think she's aware of that. Like that's where that's coming from. Because the general public does not think that.
do something about it. Therefore, they should do something about it. And since they won't do something about it, it's fine for us to treat them however we want. I think the visualness of the starkness between an actor in a fat suit and then out of the fat suit in the current day. It's like they're in the fat suit in the flashback, and in the current day, they're a size, I don't know, US 2 or whatever they are. Then like it reinforces this like blame game that we have around fat
Well,
people.
there's a lot of people that have downsized. So you can write a character that is downsized, you know? It is what it is. I don't think that she likes to see that it's possible because that bothers her, you know?
People like all of the time.
The practice of celebrating weight loss not only upholds the supremacy of thinness and thin people, it also upholds restrictive ideas about health and beauty that reify racism, ableism, and other systems of oppression.
Oh my gosh, freaking Aubrey Gordon.
Never really see it the opposite way, do you? I honestly cannot think of a time in which a larger actor has been cast for a smaller role. I've seen people get more buff for roles, more athletic and such, but I find it hard to believe that we'd ever see, say, Joy Nash being cast as Audrey Hepburn or Jack Black as Joseph Campbell. I would watch that if it happened, by the way. 100% I would. I can imagine that if that ever did happen, the internet would be filled with upcries and people upset about it, claiming, well, that's just not historically accurate. Meanwhile, Tom Hanks can be cast as Colonel Tom Parker.
It depends. I mean, I don't know. I have an example, which is weird, but I do. I was watching this with my cousin. I was watching High School Musical, the show, or the musical show, or something like that. High School Musical, the musical show, the one on Disney Plus. And they did the play Beauty and the Beast in one of the seasons, and they casted Belle, and she was a bigger girl playing Belle. So it's an example. It's something I've seen. I didn't care that happened. Because I thought it was just, it's like their cute little high school play or whatever. in the show, but that show has a lot of problems. I wouldn't really suggest it, but I was super into High School Musical, so that's why I watched it. I watched it with my cousin, who was also super into High School Musical, so we wanted to see. And then we both been talking about Olivia Rodrigo, and I want the tea on her breakup so bad. She better deliver that in that album. Auntie is waiting for the answers. So, which I'm kind of like, I don't like that she changed the album. I'm not going to get too detailed about it, but I have a lot of thoughts on Olivia. But I am really excited for that tea, basically. I hope she delivers because, oh my gosh. But anyways, that's why we were watching it. So we were trying to see Olivia on there. And that's an example of that. So if you look, you will find, I guess.
In the Elvis Presley movie, and those same people are nowhere to be found. Fat actors exist, we know they do. So why is there just such this weird resistance to casting them? As we've already discussed, public perceptions of fat people are not great. To award a fat person with such an opportunity could be interpreted as
Oh, and I need to clarify my criticisms of the High School Musical, the musical show. It's the writing. It was the writing and the directing. The acting, they were all pretty good, but you could tell the structure of the show was kind of off, and the writing was bad. Like, some of the lines were so bad, but they really tried. Like, the actors really tried. So it's not the actor's fault.
Glorifying obesity.
Glorifying obesity is just such a strange idea, right? This is I think one of those things that is a very sort of telling on yourself projection. Because you don't think of representation as glorified unless you feel that way about the way that representation is now, right? Like, it's the same way that like any sort of Republican accusation is a confession.
It's like saying, "Oh, you're glorifying cancer." Right. It's not an illness, for one thing. But
Okay,
for another
you
thing,
needed to
it's
have
like
more of an example of that if you were going to talk about that. I don't even understand that. Let me try it one more time.
Projection.
Okay.
Because you don't think of representation as glorified unless you feel that way about the way that representation is now, right? Like,
I don't understand that.
It's the same way that like any sort of Republican accusation.
So you don't feel that way about
it's like saying
the glorification now? What? I can't understand what she was saying. I literally can't understand what she was saying there. So either I'm totally out of touch or she just said something really weird. So if you say that you're glorifying obesity, then you're saying something about the way the representation is now. I don't know. She lost me.
"Oh, you're glorifying cancer." Right. It's not an illness, for one thing. But for another thing, it's like I don't think that portraying anything in a neutral.
It is. It is an illness. It's, in a lot of cases, it's a mental illness, especially at such big sizes. But other than that, it would be a physical illness. There's a reason. You know, people don't just end up super morbidly obese for no reason. So it is. It's something.
Neutral light is glorifying it. Fat people exist.
Like, insulin resistance is, in my opinion, a state of illness, for example.
We're not some kind of blight on humanity. And the sooner you realize that, the happier you'll be as you exist in this world with fat people.
I just don't even think the juice is worth the squeeze on that question.
Yeah. Okay.
Not because of you, but like anyone that's asking that has already lost the plot. Fat people exist. Period. End. Done. That's it. We have entire shows about like abusers and people that we're meant to identify with. I watched Succession, and like, I'm not going to go have a bunch of kids and victimize them for my entire life. Like, what is anyone even talking about? Like, come on.
Wherever fat people go.
Okay, so I don't know. I haven't necessarily heard that as much about like movies and stuff. It tends to be like with modeling or, you know, posting aspirational content. There, that's where I feel like it's put out there. Or it has to do with like acting like everything's okay all the time. Or it's literally people doing fat activism. So they'll like post a picture of themselves and then they write something about how like weight doesn't matter in terms of health, which is glorifying obesity.
Accusations of glorifying obesity follow. They show up when fat people post pictures of ourselves at the beach, lounging in bathing suits, when fat people play sports or go to the gym, and when fat people dare to be seen as we are in popular media and ad campaigns. When done by thinner people, many of these activities are congratulated and celebrated, or at least uncommented on. When fat people do them, we're told we're glorifying obesity.
I swear, if I ever discover who was the first to utter that cursed phrase, I'm going to travel back into time and turn them into a toad. Fat suits are kind of a chicken and egg situation. Somebody casts a conventionally sized actor to wear a fat suit, thus further normalizing its usage and not casting actual fat actors in their media. Then other people see someone using a fat suit and then decide to copy that, thus furthering, you get it, you understand. And keep in mind, there aren't as many opportunities for fat actors as conventionally sized ones. So when you give a thick, juicy role to a conventionally sized actor who already has a long and successful career, as opposed to the fat actor who maybe has a smaller Internet Movie Database page, it's kind of shitty. Don't tell the principal I used that word. Like, why does...
Well, I mean, if you want to make a movie or something, you can cast whoever you want. But it's not really like, it's based in two things typically. So like films and stuff, they're based in two different things. It's either the artist's vision, so like the casting director, whatever. I'm not like super like big on Hollywood and all that stuff. So just if I'm saying something wrong, just cut me some slack here. The director, the writer, right? It's either their vision or it's the money to be made from the product. That's the two things typically. And sometimes there can be like an activistic vision within the creator, but it's not necessarily always going to involve casting a fat actor. You know, it's up to that person. I come across this often, or I have throughout my years of activism. You are not entitled to other people's activism. You're never entitled to that. So if that person, that creator, they have an activistic vision for their film and they don't want to have a fat actor in it for whatever reason, that's their decision. Just as if you have a vision and you want to have a fat actor in yours, you absolutely can, and nobody can stop you, you know? So yeah, but other than that, it's about the money, which it typically has to do with being able to name drop and something like that. You know, it's a big deal. You want like a big name in the movie so that people will come see it. That's basically where that comes from oftentimes.
Somebody like Tom Hanks or Christian Bale need to play a fat character. They have long, successful careers going back as far as I can remember. Give the roles to fat people. Something else.
That being said, she has a right to say that. I just don't necessarily agree because, again, I've had experience in writing and stuff, and I was very like, I want my vision to be my vision, you know? So I understand that as somebody who did write in the past. So I'm respectful of that.
else that Sarah points out is that fat suits really don't look that good. This isn't a real fat body, and it doesn't look like one. Not to mention, when you take a conventionally sized actor and put them in a fat suit, your brain is just like constantly reminded that that's not real. That's not what they actually look like. Suspension of disbelief is kind of a necessary part of watching television and movies.
Sure, but fiction is fiction. Like, if you're talking to a unicorn in the movie, it's like, okay, you know what I mean? Like, I just saw Project Hail Mary. Like, they're in outer space and there's an alien and there's like all this stuff, and it's like, it's a lot. It was a lot. It was like an experience, I will say. It was a good movie in my opinion. But it's like, that is a lot of like suspension of disbelief or whatever. Like, it's not super realistic, but it was still like really interesting and good. Honestly, I think it was very well done. That's my opinion. So it was very like fascinating. I liked it.
Some genres more than others. So you think
But it's like, is that a realistic thing? No, like, you know, it's not real, you know? So I don't know. I don't think a fat suit is like that big of a stretch. If we're talking like other planets and space and this and that and the other and all that stuff, you know?
It'd be an automatic faux pas. When fat people play fat people, it looks better. It gives opportunities for acting to those who maybe don't get as many as their conventionally sized coworkers.
Sure, but people are not entitled to that. I'm sorry. It's a cutthroat business. It is. It's really cutthroat. And if somebody's better, if they're a better actor, I would want the better actor. You know, personally, I would. Or if I have a vision, I want somebody that fits my vision more. Like, for example, you guys know I'm a Twilight person, or I was in high school. I feel like I get more and more cringe the more I talk about this stuff, but the director of Twilight, she chose Kristen Stewart for Bella, and it's like, that's the vision. That was her vision. I think it was Catherine Hardwicke. That was her vision. You know, and I liked the casting. I liked Robert Pattinson. It was controversial at the time. I liked Taylor Lautner. You know, I like who she casted. I think she did an amazing job. And it's like, you have to choose the person that fits, and people don't like Kristen Stewart's acting sometimes, but that's how Bella was in the books. Like, I don't know. And I'm sorry that I like an introvert girly pop main character. I do. Sue me, you know? Sue me. I liked it. For once. Give us that rep. No, I'm just kidding. No, there's plenty of introvert main characters, but still, I loved it. I loved it. I loved the introvert Bella with the two hot mess, like, you know, anxiously attached guys that were like obsessed with her. I mean, I loved it. I loved the books. I did. As cringy as it is to say, I loved it. And it was not okay to love it at the time, but I did. I still did. I even took them to high school and everything. I was brave. But I would try to hide that I was reading it. And I hid it well. Because I wasn't supposed to be reading in class, but I did it anyway.
And it also offers less risk of perpetuating dangerous biases and bigotries against those with larger bodies. Oh, okay, full disclosure, I may have partaken in some of that rest stop sandwich, and I think I need to fly to the bathroom. Stay here. Why don't you go ahead and think some of your favorite fat characters, and we'll discuss when I get back. Oh.
Okay, we're going to leave it there, because I think it's so awkward to leave it there. So I will talk to you guys again soon. Have a good rest of your day, night, etc. We'll talk later. Bye.